Okay. Well, you guys work so closely with the director. So, can you talk about the importance of that relationship and what have been some of your best director experiences?
I mean, I guess I can speak to just Hustlers because it was such a powerful experience working with Lorene. We really, really were just on the same page creatively and emotionally in a way that I think is rare. And it was interesting. We were so in flow together that like there was just a lot of joy happening behind the monitor and on set. And I think that like we saw that filter down on set to the crew and we were having fun. So everyone had fun because of that. I don't know, it was powerful.
I would say that every director is so different. I mean, it's really incredible to me. I've worked with many, and what would be a necessity and a dogma for one director is the opposite for another director. And I've had the fortune of working with such different styles. Ang Lee versus Oliver Stone, Alejandro, just very different styles, and I really enjoy that as a cinematographer. I think that's my favorite thing to be able to look at these worlds and these minds and how these different people see the world, and these talented directors. I always try to work with people that I find interesting and that I admire, and that I want to participate in that mind, and try to understand it and try to bring my perspective to that worldview or that artistic perspective on life. And certainly the Irishman, everything I've done with Scorsese has been very exciting. And I've always obviously admired his work as a director, but also the way he sees the camera, the way he expresses himself with a camera, and that's really to me very exciting. And I think every director I've worked with, I've really enjoyed it, even when there's drama, and conflict, but it's just amazing to me as a human being to be able to participate with these people, and get to see their perspective and try to express that myself. It makes me grow as a human, I think.
Yeah, I totally relate to what Rodrigo is saying. I think it's the most exciting part of the process. Also, when you start working with a director, and before you even start talking about shots or mise en scène, you're like trying to get on their head, and you read the script, and you're like trying to understand, this mind, this crazy mind, and get as much information so that when you're in the set, you know what they need, how they need to do things, and what where, from which angle they want to see that piece of the world that you're photographing. For me, it's also like really, it's really the main thing that drives me to choose a project. Like, of course, I have to really resonate with the script and with the message that the script is, bringing. But then it has to be like a director that really excites me and challenges me in a way, and that I feel like the journey of getting in this person's head and then facilitate that vision to go into the screen is going to be, challenging and exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much. I kind of see it like kind of solving a puzzle, and there's so much teamwork in it, and it is really interesting to. It's great when you're on the same page, which happened for all of us so many times, and for me with Taika that happened, and it was great. But uh, if you're not, it's like fighting to get there. So it's always interesting. I mean, I had amazing collaboration with Francis, but like I think Taika is kind of on the same level.
Do any of you have like favorite go-to equipment that you try to use on like every single project?
I'm addicted to the Crystal Express anamorphic lenses. The last 3 projects, like I tried everything else because I feel like, okay, I should use something different, and I end up going back to those lenses.
I mean, I'm trying. I have a little bit of a problem. I have too many still cameras, I think. So, but that allows me to try all sorts of crazy lenses, and I really enjoy trying everything new every time for every project, or having a different approach with tools that I already used. But yeah.
I mean, I kind of fall in love with whatever the style that we've chosen for that movie is. I try to create like a totally new look per project. It's challenging to myself and for the project, but I kind of like whenever I'm doing something, everything else is like completely dead to me. You know, like if we're doing like a spherical movie, then it's like spherical is the fucking truth, and then anamorphic is just totally it's crap. You know, and then the next movie is anamorphic is just so perfect.
So fickle.
Yeah, so it's.
Yeah, for me, it's also that way. You know, every project needs something different, and I try to kind of approach every film as if it were my first student film, and learn from scratch, and come up with something that excites me and is different, not just for different sake, but something that really feels correct for that script. I made the mistake once of following someone's advice and buying equipment and buying a set of lenses, and I realized immediately how limiting that was for me. That okay, now I have to use. I bought some ultra prime lenses. Now everything has to be ultra prime to make the money back, and now I sold them immediately because it just, you know, I do enjoy just trying something else and different texture, and even within the movie I do that a lot. Where I don't know if I'm too jumpy or something, but I tried different looks even on the Irishman, you know, and all the decades, and that excited me. Okay, so we'll do this for that and this, you know. But I don't know. I always like finding the recipe for a specific movie or even for a specific scene.
What's been your best day on the job and your worst day on the job?
The worst is just I prefer not even to go there because there've been accidents and stuff, and that's really really hard. You know, it's just a tough business we're in, and sometimes you know things happen that are really hard to get through. But best, I think maybe one of them that I remember was I did this movie Alexander with Oliver Stone, and there was a scene that we shot with color infrared footage film, which was very risky and scary, and I had that idea and I proposed it to Oliver and he didn't quite understand. Then I shot tests and the studio was completely against it, and it was a real struggle to convince everybody and to shoot a battle scene with color infrared in Thailand. I mean, it was really pretty irresponsible. The day I saw the dailies, I think that's one of my favorite moments. Wow, because it was so crazy. It really, the blood was yellow and all the foliage was purple and the helmets were purple, were sort of blue. I mean, it's just so bizarre, and I really felt that, I felt it very excited about it. So that was, I remember that very fondly.
For me, I was in Neon Demon, which was my first film on digital. And I was really struggling with digital and trying to find ways of making it look more filmic and more organic. And that movie was really like a school for me. And every day I kind of got the better handle at it. And luckily we were shooting chronologically, so I could go crazier with the cinematography as the movie developed. But I remember one day where I had a shot and there was like some kind of windows with a lot of too much texture that I wanted to kind of diffuse, and I just tried a little bit of grease from my forehead and painted, because we had like everything was a static shot in that movie. So I just went like just over the window and just diffuse, and I was like, oh, I can make out of focus whatever part of this frame that I want. And so then I was like...
You literally use your sweat.
Yeah, which is what the old masters were doing, 100 years ago. So I didn't invent that. But then I was like, hey, Nick, is this okay? Like, and he was like, wow, yes, like do it more. So then I was like, that day, like I started to do it for all other stuff, and I started to diffuse the corners and like literally like just painting on the frame. And Nick was very encouraging to anything that was experimental, and he was like, more color and more sweat and more of it. So that day was a great day for me, because I discovered how I was gonna survive the digital era. And so since then, even though I always end up almost always using my favorite lenses in the world. I use an optical flat in front of the lenses, and I paint. Then I graduated from sweat, and now I have like a suitcase with a lot of different liquids and powders and substances and brushes. But now I'm painting on the filter all the time, and so I'm kind of, even though it's sometimes the same lenses can look totally different, and I can send flares to the things that I'm painting, and basically it became like another layer of tools that I never had when I was shooting on film, because we didn't need to do all this stuff to make it look good. It was looking good already. So that was kind of a really important day for me. It just became like, okay, now I'm, it's almost like
What a
now
trick.
discovering the DJ.
Everyone's going to use their sweat now.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's been using sweat forever. I didn't discover it, but for me, it became like, this is how I'm gonna paint from now on. This is gonna be a big part of my toolkit.
I mean, I remember on Hustlers, the scene where Usher comes to the club for us was just like a real moment of triumph. It was like something we fought for, and we're on like our 6th overnight, and we're in this club, and you're losing your mind, and it's just like, and the movie was so hard and so stressful, and then we got to this point where the scene happens. We have everyone on stage, and the real Usher is playing Usher in 2007, and he comes out, and it's the only scene we shot anamorphic. We shot in these E-series Panavision anamorphics. We wanted to actually look like a music video. It's like the height of the good times for them before it all comes crashing down, and it's kind of like that for us as well. Like, and I just remember he walked out, and we were shooting with a couple cameras, and we are kind of just rolling on it live. And he like threw like a stack of money into the air, and then it rained money for like 10 minutes. Like it rained more money than he had thrown in the air. And it was just like,
that's just the power of Usher.
Yeah. And we just had this like moment at the monitor, just like, oh man, it's happening.
Mine will be very similar with yours. Like, we projected dailies for Jojo. It was amazing, and we were doing it only once or twice a week. But I really remember the first Friday where we gather up in a theater and watch dailies for the first time.
And finally, what are some of your favorite shots in movie history?
I am Cuba.
What about it?
I love, it's, almost every shot, but there's the shot where it's the funeral, and the camera starts with the girlfriend of the guy that was shot, and it's really like on the personal level, and then it moves with all the people, and it becomes kind of the people, and then it starts to jeep up and goes like, I think like 3 floors, and enters in this tobacco factory. So you go from like seeing the grand, like almost Lenny Reference style view of, like, I don't know how many thousands of people like walking in that demonstration. You enter into the tobacco factory, and you go back again to the level of the workers that are still working, and then the camera keeps going and comes out the window, and then it keeps flying, and it's like the super wide where it's like the whole of Cuba now, and it just goes in one shot, from the individual to the collective in such a amazing way. And I mean, just conceptually is amazing. And then if you want to talk about how they did that at the time with the elements that they had, it's like insane. It's like you can write 10 pages about the mechanisms and how they were hanging people from cranes and stuff.
I mean, there's a Wong Kar-wai movie called Days of Being Wild, and at the end, the main character goes back to the Philippines to see his estranged mother, and she refuses to see him, and he walks away from her property, making sure to never show her his face. He's just like walking, keeping his back to her, and as he's walking, the camera's just following him handheld. It lasts for like 2 minutes, and they're playing this like Hawaiian luau song. But as they're walking, they started manually speed ramping the camera so that it would become more and more slow motion as they went. And normally there's a way to mechanically compensate the shutter so that as it becomes more slow motion on film, the brightness of the image doesn't change. But they turn that off. So as it gets slower motion, as he's walking away from his mother and it's just walking, the image just starts falling apart over like 2.5 minutes. It just gets like super underexposed. It's just really emotional. Yeah.
Well, I can't think of a shot, frankly. It probably would have been I Am Cuba, a few shots in that movie, but I just remember the scene. It's crazy, but Jesus Christ Superstar, when when Judas appears and he's singing in the desert and tanks appear and then jets, the fighter jets appear. I was blown away. I must have been 10 or something, or 9 years old, and I still remember the excitement of, wow, I grew up, in a Catholic country, in a Catholic family, and suddenly, okay, yeah, Judas can be this guy in rock and roll and, airplanes and tanks. And I just found the irreverence of that super exciting.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a shot. I have a strange one where my parents took me to see Tarkovsky's Stalker when I was probably 6 years old, and I don't know. I think they weren't able to find a babysitter, and
Yeah, you had to come.
It stayed with me like for so long until I was 16 or 17. I remember just like water and sand and all those images from Stalker, and when I saw it again at a proper, much proper age, I remember it's like it's amazing how many years I've been seeing those images.
All right, guys. Well, it was great speaking with you guys tonight. Thank you all for coming out, and thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.